Hey, and welcome back to the channel. I've got another GoPro new remote video for you. Today I'll be covering multicam operation and performance. After this video, there are 2 more queued up, and that's a wrap on my GoPro coverage for a little bit. So if you're new here, tech reviews and talks is something I do extra from time to time, and as my subscribers really request it. Now I'm analytical and curious by nature, so I do enjoy putting these videos together, test scenarios, tracking results, sharing them. But if I'm honest, I'm ready to get back to the family vlogging. I have a Jeep trip with a buddy who's never been to an off-road park before coming up, and that video should just be a blast. Along with the multi-part series for audio home theater calibrations and tuning, so keep an eye out for that if you're interested. Alright, for today I want to cover how multicam works and the options for changing between cameras that you may want to control, along with the length of time the remote takes to execute those actions. I do highlight some remote hiccups that I captured during the video, but I'm not lying when I say that gremlins just happen to come out when the camera comes on. This is likely due to me pushing so many buttons and commands, toggling this, that, and the other. Truthfully, I don't see these issues with regular everyday usage. What the video has shown so far is that when replacing the GoPro battery, you need to manually power on the cameras in order for the remote to be able to connect. There is a connectivity sequence, so it's unrealistic to think the remote can just power on and power off the camera whenever. Yes, the remote is paired with the cameras, but that's just an ID and allowance for control. The remote still has to search and find your cameras before it can actually take action. My testing has shown that the remote will lose knowledge of the cameras somewhere between 6 to 8 hours. If you're within that window, the remote can be turned off, as well as the GoPro is turned off. Then you can power on the remote, it will search, find your cameras, at which point you can successfully power them on. Otherwise, if you're past that 6 to 8 hour window, then your cameras will not be found when the remote goes to search. At this point, you're required to manually power on your cameras. Once that connection's made, you're good to go. That said, let's take a look at some of the multi-camera operations and how long these actions take to execute. So as mentioned, sometimes this little bug can creep up, and it's where the remote will show recording, but the recording's actually stopped in the cameras, and just pressing the record button again takes it away. It's very rare, and I pretty much have only seen it whenever I've been trying to shoot a video and test. So you see there, power off is really responsive, only takes about 5 to 6 seconds. Here's a power on test, and note the way multicam power on works is the cameras are powered on sequentially and not in parallel. So it'll power on one camera, then go to the next, and then the next after that. In multiple tests, I'm finding that's taken anywhere between 8 to 10 seconds per camera. On average, it's really taken around 30 seconds or so just to power on the cameras. But bear in mind that once the cameras are power on, the remote still has to make that connection and switch over, detecting what mode the cameras are in before you can actually start recording. So even though you've powered on your cameras in roughly 30 seconds, there's still about another 5 to 6 second check time for the remote to sync, at which point you can then start recording video. So when in multi-camera mode, simply press the power button once, and this gets you into the menu where you can choose other cameras or go back into multi-camera mode. If you choose a certain camera, the remote will then connect directly to that camera, and now any actions you take are done only to that camera. So for this example here, I just hit record, and again, we're only recording on that single camera that I'm now connected to. Same with changing modes here, as well as any power on and power off commands. So here's a single camera power off time, and we're at roughly between 5 to 6 seconds. And then here's a quick test for powering on this camera. So you'll see that flashing light. At that point, I can take my finger off the button that I'm holding to power on the camera, because the remote's acknowledged the command, and now it's been sent to the camera. So we see here at about 14:34 the camera powered on. Again, that 5-second delay there where the remote gets in sync, and then I'm able to record. Alright, and here's a quick second power off test. And then here's another power on test as well. Now you'll probably notice that was a little bit quicker than the first go around. We shaved off probably about 5 to 6 seconds. While the remote for the most part has been consistent, I have found that it can be a little bit quicker and a little bit faster from time to time. It's nothing too major, where it's like 10 to 20 to 30 second differences. It's really more in the realm of that 3 to 5 second type of difference. I'm going to let the video play in the background as it's just more timing tests so you can see the full remote power down to startup and the amount of time that takes. So during my testing, I tried to break what I could and cause sync issues with the remote, but honestly, the way the remote functions makes it rather resilient. For example, if I had one camera recording, one camera powered on, and then one camera doing nothing powered off, it went into multi-mode. It would then connect to all 3 cameras, powering up the one camera that was down, and connecting to the camera that was recording, as well as connecting to the camera that was powered on. If I hit the record button, the other 2 cameras would then start recording, but the third camera, which was already recording, was not affected. Then when I hit the record stop button, all 3 cameras stopped, and the cameras were back in sync. This is both good and bad, as with multi-mode, you can't really pick a pair of cameras if you want to send multifunctions to them directly. If all cameras are found by the remote, then it connects to all of them. So unfortunately in my case, I couldn't temporarily just pair 2 cameras and send a sync recording to those. I would have to connect to those 2 cameras individually and start something there, then connect to the third camera separately and maybe start a time lapse, for example. Just note with multi-mode, it's pretty much all or nothing for the cameras that the remote detects. And that's because in multi-mode, cameras cannot change modes individually. So if you push the mode button once and one camera is out of sync, for example, it basically defaults everything back to the video mode, and then you can start cycling modes. This is why whenever you push the mode button, it doesn't immediately change all the camera's modes. It basically brings up the mode they're in, and then it will start cycling. If you need to change a single camera's mode, you can do that by connecting directly to it, change that camera's mode, and then go back to multi-mode. Just know that when you push the command button on the remote, some weird behavior can happen. For example, I had 2 cameras in video mode and 1 camera in photo mode. When I pushed the command button, it started recording video on the 2 cameras and then took a single photo on the solo camera. Subsequent remote action button presses would only take photos on that single camera, but would not stop the recording on the other 2 cameras. I had to hit the mode button, which then only cycled the camera in photo mode. I then cycled it to video mode, hit record again, and it started recording on that camera and still did not stop the recording on the other 2 cameras. But with these cameras in the same mode now and all recording, then whenever I hit the action button to stop recording, all 3 cameras stopped recording and we're now back in sync. Even with the little quirks, I've really enjoyed this remote and I know I'm going to be happy with it long term. The battery life on this thing has been nothing but amazing. With all this testing and me having the remote for about 3 weeks now, I'm only down to 91%. I easily think this thing will last a month or 2. And that wraps it up for today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Now get out and go do what makes you happy. We'll see you on the next one.